Right, it is 4 p.m. All right, I first want to just welcome everybody to our first meeting of the 2022 calendar year. Thank you guys for your support. We definitely appreciate everyone taking time out of their busy days to uh, gather and we all learn something and actually network. I look forward to the opportunity for us to get back together in person. Not rushing, but I know at some point, whenever we get past everything that's been going on, it'll be great to get back together with all of the group. Again, I just want to welcome everyone. I just want to open up with a couple quick changes to our board. Um, we've created a new role as well as added a very talented individual to our board. So wanted to just take this quick opportunity to introduce Sherry Fisher. Sherry is going to be assuming the education chair role. She has done a great job behind the scenes, assisting Taylor, and overwhelmingly, she has been accepted to our board to continue the great work that she's doing. Taylor's not going anywhere. Taylor is actually moving into a technology role. I think most of you or some of you have got the opportunity to see the training session that Taylor put on, and I still get comments and feedback from those sessions. So Taylor has done a great job improving the technology and really positioning our chapter to set ourselves apart and take us someplace we've never been. So we welcome Taylor into this new role of technology chair, and we'll just give him an opportunity to tell you a little bit about what he has planned for this new role. Taylor.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it very much. So yeah, just a brief overview of the role. You know, as we kind of were navigating through the challenges brought on by the pandemic leading into 2021, we went to a fully virtual format and continue to do so. Part of my role as education chair at the time was to construct and maintain a virtualized platform for us, which resulted in the North Texas AHRMM resource library, which if you haven't checked it out, go to our website, northtexasarm.org. There's a big red button in the bottom right corner that will lead you to that resource library. We've gathered a lot of great informational resources there to help our members advance their careers. So take a look at that. Also, that meant creating our YouTube channel so we could take our member meetings like this and post them to the YouTube channel so that we could have an on-demand repository for a lot of the great stuff, educational offerings that our keynote speakers give to us during these monthly meetings. Also, I want to give a shout out to Sherry Fisher, obviously our new education chair. Without her, my transition to the technology role wouldn't even be possible. So thank you so much, Sherry, appreciate it. As Tim stated, her support on the education committee last year was absolutely critical to our success. And I know you're already putting a lot of effort into this year's content as well. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what else we have. And due to the popularity of the Excel trainings last year, we're going to do a couple more this year, hopefully a little bit more than that. Right now, we're slotted for May and November. So really looking forward to doing a couple more of those and expanding a little bit beyond that as well. So I'd love to hear some feedback. Of course, either contact me through northtexasarm@gmail.com or I can drop my email in the chat. But I'd love to hear what other technologies you guys are interested in learning. So yeah, that's a little bit about the technology role and looking to expand a little bit more into that this year. I'm very excited.
right. Taylor, if you could put the email address in the chat window, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So next up is our new education chair. I'm going to pivot over to her, but go ahead and hit the next slide, Taylor. One more slide. So this slide represents all of our board and committee chairs. Usually you have this slide in to offer out to our members, if you want to assist in any of these areas, definitely reach out to any of the committee chairs, any of the officers, and we would love the support. Again, when I gave this call last year, Sherry raised her hand and stepped in and did a phenomenal job. So phenomenal that, hey, we want her part of the team permanently to make things happen, and she's done a great job. So definitely, if any of our members want to join any of these committees, definitely reach out to myself or reach out directly to the committee chairs. We can definitely use the support and appreciate the support. So everything that we do, we're doing it to advance our chapter and just keep moving forward. So next slide. So at this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Sherry to introduce our dynamic speakers.
Okay. Well, I definitely want to thank Isikel for reaching out and volunteering to speak, for the first program that we have this month. I've been working with Sandra and Melissa over the last couple of months, and so we were able to pull this program together. So today's program is going to be about new traditions as far as procurement and sourcing, and that's critical, with COVID, what we're doing, we really don't know when this is going to end, so a lot of really good information today. I'm going to start off and read both of their bios, and then Sandra, you can go ahead and take over the presentation. Sandra Myint has been in healthcare for over 40 years, and she started out as an RN. She spent her last 20 years working for various healthcare organizations, really focusing on value analysis and sourcing teams, and that's exactly what we have at Parkland, so that's great. And she's been a consultant for VHA MedAsset, which is now, of course, known as Vizient. And she's currently serving as the Vice President of Clinical Integration for Isikel Medical in Tomball, Texas. And we also have Melissa Bernier. Melissa started her career as a pharmacy tech, and she learned to work with various departments across healthcare organizations, and she found her passion in medical sales. And so now she works with medical sales organizations to find innovative solutions to meet their sourcing needs. And she's treasurer of the HTMA in Houston, which I know she'll talk a little bit about that. So Sandra, handing it over to you.
All right. Okay, thank you. If you go to our slide. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for having us talk about something that seems to be pretty important these days, and that is really working with non-traditional procurement sources, especially in this world of COVID. It seems like every week things are changing. A little bit more about me. I was a member of the North Texas AHRMM chapter many, many years ago, and I see a lot of familiar faces, and so it's good to catch up with you as well. Next slide. On the agenda today, we're going to talk a little bit about an overview of non-traditional procurement, the growing market for non-traditional procurement, some of the benefits of using these procurement sources, how to access non-traditional suppliers, vetting those non-traditional suppliers, and also going into some future of non-traditional procurement. And then we'll have time for discussion. And I have the chat open, so if you have any questions or comments, we can address them at the end or during their talks. So thank you. Next slide. Just a couple of audience questions, and I'd love to see if you would put some answers in here or be thinking about them. Have you established alternative vendor relationships to address your supply chain shortages? I know most recently I was working with a clinic system, and we were having to look for alternative sources as COVID has moved forward. It's not always the same items that we could get, and so that was one of the challenges that we had, is trying to find somebody to help us get the supplies we needed for patient care. Next, how were you introduced to these suppliers? I know I got a lot of emails, I got cold calls, I found them on the internet, and also recommendations from friends. And so networking often helped me with finding those suppliers. And then the question will be is, do you plan to continue these partnerships after COVID? And hopefully I'll address some of that, and we can talk about that at the end. Next slide. So this is kind of our world today. I know in the news, I know in all of your news feeds that come from supply chain, your GPOs, from AHRMM, from AVAP, from AHRMM, we're all talking about supply chain shortages. And I think we're very aware, and sometimes it feels like we need a crystal ball to predict what the next shortage is going to be and where I'm going to find items. And as we know that this is an international crisis, and so it's going to take years to resolve. And many of us have some empty shelves in our warehouses as a result. Next slide. All right, so just an overview of non-traditional procurement suppliers. They often provide an alternative solution for supplies and med-surg distribution. They tend to be agile partners to source for specific products or products, and for your provider organization. And they also can help find difficult to access through your normal channels. So if your med-surg distributor doesn't have it and you can't access it direct, this may be an alternative source for you for getting the products that you need. They typically have the ability to source your formulary products and functional equivalents through many channels, both nationally and internationally. And many times they have contacts that you may not know of that are across the country. Also, they also vet many of the products that they do carry through 510K and other certification and testing. And that's really going to be important when you choose a non-traditional supplier. Some of those non-traditional supplier options on the market today are, for instance, national distributors or buying co-ops. Like NDC is one that's out of Nashville that I'm aware of. And there are others out there in the market. Some others are more regionally based distributors, like our company here in Texas, that work maybe with some of the local organizations, healthcare organizations in their area, but they may also have outreach to other parts of the country. So again, those tend to be more regional. You may have some in North Texas. And then finally, e-commerce. There's a lot of companies that are now becoming more e-commerce. One that comes to mind to me is Amazon. Amazon is really getting into healthcare supplies, and they typically are very non-traditional from how we did business and supply chain even 3 years ago. So again, these are some of our alternatives, and some of you may have those types of partnerships. Next. Thank you. This non-traditional procurement is really growing market for many of the suppliers, as well as growing as far as options of suppliers available for you as well. So what's driving that? Well, supply chain shortages continue and have become more extensive and unpredictable than just PPE. At the beginning, we were looking for PPE, respiratory supplies, and a few items, but now, and in ventilators, and when the COVID happened, but now we're really seeing a lot of different things going on, back orders and shortages, and they're very unpredictable as to what they will be for the week that you're working through. So one of the high demand items in addition to PPE today seems to be, for instance, saline flush syringes. Or how about the blood draw tubes? How about those tubes with citrate in them? And they're very difficult to find, and I'm sure many of you are shaking your head because you're also looking for these types of items. Part of the reason for that is that there's been a demand surge, and it's been unpredictable, and the manufacturers have not prepared for that. But there's also crucial manufacturing component challenges. So I know some of you may remember, like there was a fire where there was no plastics available, or in the manufacturing piece, they started and moved into another product. The example might be your surgical wraps, where Kimberly-Clark made the decision to move them into isolation gowns, and then we didn't have any wraps. So those are some of the examples that you may see with challenges. But there's also manufacturing is also typically concentrated in single geographic regions, and we've learned about that. For instance, if you are dealing with, let's say, gloves, they tend to come from Malaysia, Asia, and China. And then there's many challenges that sometimes there may be an earthquake, there could be a monsoon, there could be a COVID outbreak, and the whole city's closed down. We already know about Chinese New Year. Right now, manufacturing is shut down in China around the Olympics, so because of pollution. So there's many things that go on because of that regional, single regional manufacturing. There's also those crucial shipping and transportation issues that we're all aware of. We've seen those pictures of the ports where boats are out sitting out in the ocean waiting to come in, and no truck drivers and so on. And so those issues are still continuing our problem. In fact, I live here in Galveston, and we see many ships just sitting out there for days, months, years, it seems, and they're not able to come into shore because of to unload. Also, there's been consolidation of suppliers and line discontinuation, and so as those suppliers have merged and combined businesses, if they have any duplicate lines, they tend to discontinue one. And in this kind of shortage, it has led to quite some severe back orders. I haven't really mentioned, FDA alerts and recalls in here, but those are another challenge. There's lack of visibility to the upstream supply chains disruptions. So we're not aware in our facilities sometimes of those upstream disruptions when they are not able to manufacture because of a COVID shutdown of a region, or thinking about weather or other things. So we really need to have more visibility into that entire supply chain. And then med-surg distributor stockouts, of course, including your functional equivalents when you've gone through those. Now where do you source the products that you need to care for your patients? Some of the other strategies that we relied on in the past was sole source strategies that were helped us to reduce costs, and we worked with maybe a sole source distributor, or we standardized our products, and we're learning now that we cannot access allocations from other manufacturers because of that. And then there's just-in-time purchasing strategies where we didn't have enough product on hand. And then ongoing COVID pandemic is affecting not only our staff, but the rest of the country's staffing as well. So all of these are reasons why this market is growing. There's unpredictability, supply chain interruptions, and they're really impacting patient safety. And we read about that quite often. I know ECRI has quoted it 2 years in a row that these supply chain interruptions and lack of supplies are impacting patient safety. The supply chain risks are even threatening continuity of our businesses. So we may have to stop surgery, we may have to close other areas. And so having no supply is a real threat to our business continuity for providers. And then we know that these interruptions are coming for many years to come, that there's a lot of challenges. And so this is another reason this market is growing. And then finally, there's more qualified non-traditional suppliers entering the market, and they can really help diversify your supply chain options for procurement and sourcing. Next slide. So some of the benefits, and some of this is redundant, but I think it's good to go through that. So the supply chain disruptions internationally and nationally have led to shortages across the board. And these suppliers can help provide alternative sources for you. And so partnering with a reliable non-traditional supplier can also be a good source for you. There's they tend to be a reliable and agile alternative to your typical suppliers in med-surg distribution. They're not typically bound by GPO contracts, not necessarily bound by allocations set by the suppliers, and it can diversify your supply chain, alleviate some of the risk of not being able to access the supplies you need for patient care. Additionally, they tend to access products nationally and internationally that are hard to find in some cases and high demand. So again, those shortage products like those lab tubes or butterfly needles or flush syringes or N95 masks, I mean, each week it's something, right? Access to products using other business settings. So again, many of us learned about these alternative business settings when it came to looking for N95 masks, looking at industry and nitrile gloves was when we got introduced to some of those other business settings and other distributors could help us. They can also be a benefit your organization as a sourcing partner to supplement your procurement team. And many times your team is stretched very thin, and they have a team that can help source for you. So again, they could be a great partner to help you. Some organizations establish 3PL partnerships to supplement your stockpiling or excess inventory. They can hold them in their distribution centers. And in many cases, they can enhance your hub or NWBE spend. Many of them are certified as well, something to research when you're investigating them. Next. So how do you access these non-traditional suppliers? Well, you need to become familiar with the non-traditional suppliers and distributors in your area or online. Some of that you might learn from by networking. Sometimes your GPO may help you. Even your primary med-surg distributor may have a source that might help you. And then networking through groups like AHRMM, where you may have had good relationships or you have had success in finding the supply that you need. The AHRMM website oftentimes has been helpful, and then other areas as well. Also become familiar with their portfolio, but you do need to vet your products through your value analysis teams or some of your specialists. For instance, infection control may want to vet the products before you would bring them in for use for your organization. You want to set up the vendor in your organization after vetting them thoroughly, having them set up as part of one of your suppliers on an ongoing basis. It's great to be able to reach out to them for back orders that your med-surg distributor cannot fill. If they can predict any changes or shortages that are coming, that's when it's a good time to start reaching out to these non-traditional suppliers. You may need to consider them if you have limited space as a 3PL distributor for your organization and for specific supplies with specific vendors. And then again, consider them as an alternative distributor for routine items if you want to grow your hub and MWBE goals. So some of the good ways to access. Next. So vetting a non-traditional supplier, we have all done a great job of sourcing through more traditional routes, and our GPOs have helped us with those really setting up that information. But for these non-traditional suppliers, they typically haven't been vetted through other organizations. So the first thing I would recommend is you look for their website to see if they're a legitimate business. You want to know their history of manufacturing. An example would be on PPE if they're a manufacturer and a distributor. You also want to vet, for instance, making sure that the product specifications that they carry. You want to know if they have any accreditations that and around distribution or around their manufacturing. FDA registration for the products that they may be introducing to you if it is not the products that you typically do use. You want to know also the source of origin. You should get a reference list, especially a reference list is helpful. I know AHRMM has published a lot of that around PPE. In fact, I just saw an update, I believe yesterday. You want to make sure that you have product photos. You need to have a tax ID. It needs to be domestic, United States. You need to understand your delivery terms, your buying options, and then also get samples for evaluation. When you start working with these non-traditional suppliers, you should treat them like any other supplier that you use. You establish your performance scorecards. I know many of you do that today in your supply chain with your regular suppliers. And you should reevaluate those partnerships and collaborations with these suppliers or distributors routinely through business reviews. These organizations really enjoy those types of opportunities, and it's a great way to dialogue. Next. So what is the future of non-traditional procurement? I don't think it's going away. Supply chain disruptions are predicted for at least the next 5 years, and we don't know really when these shortages will go away. So non-traditional distribution or non-traditional suppliers may be a very good solution for your supply needs. Partners with some organizations, AHRMM, AVAP, GPO, or some third-party solutions to help vet functional equivalence when your formulary products are not available. I think that's also very helpful and can also help lead your non-traditional procurement or supplier to find those items for you. Diversification of approved vendors will continue to be a strategy in many organizations. I think we've learned a lot in my reading. There was a lot of literature about really going away from those sole source strategies that we had in the past, we found that it really has caused problems, especially when it comes to these shortages we're facing today. Expanding your 3PL or alternatives distributor for even routine item products and warehousing can also support your diversity goals. And then many of these innovative non-traditional partners are actually looking towards partnering with onshore manufacturing of products. Gloves, you've probably seen here in Texas, there's been several manufacturers setting up for nitrile gloves. This is one of the areas because they know that there's been a proven opportunity around because of the unavailability from getting them from overseas, and they tend to be in short supply. So I am going to stop there, and I'd like to be able to open this up for questions. We're excited to have a discussion and learn about how you've been working with non-traditional suppliers.
Hey, Sandy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey there, this is Danny. Hey, out of curiosity, what are some of the other lines that you guys are looking at? I know you're looking to expand. We're just curious if you could talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So our organization is looking at entering, and this is really based from some of the recommendations from our own experience and also from our customers. So we're actually partnering to build nitrile glove manufacturing here in the Houston area. ID solution for saline manufacturing in the next 12 to 18 months. Also, even vendor sterilization of trays, really finding that there's been a lot of shortage around that as well. So our company is moving towards actually finding some onshore sources for those hard to find items. Thanks for the question, Danny. Yeah, good to hear your voice. Anyone else?
Hey, Sandy, this is Sherry. Can you give us an example of a success story of some kind of non-traditional sourcing success story that you had during COVID?
Yeah, during COVID, for instance, our company, and actually how I know this company, is I was looking for supplies for a variety of different things, and masks and gloves tended to be one of them, but we're also having success in finding, for instance, the BD and Griner blood tubes for many of our clients, and when they were not able to source them through their distributor, direct, through their lab distributor, and so on. And because of contacts, we were able to successfully stock them. We're also doing some, we also have had some success stories with some of the larger hospital systems around everyday shortages. It depends on what it is, because as you know, it's not really consistent what the shortage is. It seems like every week there's a new one, from heel warmers to perineal packs to respiratory supplies to gloves to saline flushes. So these are real success stories, and we're able to make sure that some of the hospitals here in Houston have not run out of these supplies to care for their patients.
Thank you.
And this isn't a guide group, so any other questions or open discussion? Are any of you working with a non-traditional supplier to source the supplies you can't get through your typical sources? How about Tim?
There are a couple of questions on the chat.
Okay, let me see if I can see them. Do you have a listing of the items you carry? Do you have, I know AHRMM keeps a list of non-traditional vendors. Are you aware of any other entity that's compiling a list of these vendors? I know ECRI is compiling them. I believe some of the GPOs are as well. I can't speak to that directly, but I know that it's come up. For instance, I know that some of the distributors are also introducing some of these suppliers because they're not able to provide them. Do you have a listing of what you carry, and do you ship outside the Houston area? So the answer is we do have a website. Melissa would be your best contact to talk about what we have. We are actually working with organizations as far as Oregon right now. I believe we've worked with organizations in Ohio. We're working throughout Texas. So again, right now, really, our mission is really to make sure you have what you need to care for your patients. So we will share the website. Is it best to send a follow-up or put the website, Melissa can put the website in the chat if that's the best way to communicate that?
Yes, that'd be great to put it in the chat.
So Michelle said that she's having challenges with 8.5 surgeon's gloves. Yes, those biogels, we've been able to source some of them. So I'm assuming those are the surgeon's gloves, right? And blood tubes. That is a national shortage. I was talking to some FDA consultants last week, and blood tubes with citrate are not expected, that is not expected to be relieved for probably another 2 to 3 months. And the FDA is looking at some emergency approvals for alternatives on tubes. Yes, dialysis solutions is also a shortage. We've been able to source some of it, but that's pretty difficult. So some of it is even you have to work through like not med-cert at all, but really home health, partnering with a dialysis company, and I don't recommend this, but some of the pharmacies are looking to mix them, to mix the solutions in-house because it's that short. We can't use Griner due to our altitude, can only use BD. And yes, so those, we can source BD in many cases. And there are a few suppliers coming to the market around the tubes. As far as blood draws, there's some other options. There are options already available out there, but the tubes, again, like I shared, the FDA is actually looking at some emergency approvals. Yeah, vacutainers, that's, I'm assuming vacutainers are the tubes, but they also, all the supplies that have to do with blood drawing are shortage. Oh, how about COVID kits? You know, once we started here and now there's a big rush on N95 masks again because the government actually stockpiles them and they're not available for us to buy for healthcare. But I know I signed up for my 4 free ones to come to my house and shortly, but anyway, so that's a whole other tale because Melissa and I have actually found that that stockpile actually was part of the shortage. They were stockpiling while we were all trying to scramble to get products prior, you know, in 2021. Anyone else?
Hey, Sandy and Melissa, I want to thank you for a wonderful presentation, and I'm going to turn it back over to Tim.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity, and it's good to see many of you who I've worked with in the past.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Yep.
Okay, well, again, we definitely want to thank Sandy and Melissa. We appreciate you guys sharing some knowledge with us. I know, during this pandemic, we all have experienced some, well, we've all experienced it and come up with various solutions. I think, being able to be in an atmosphere where we can share our best practices and share what we've done, because again, definitely we haven't done everything, but I did see where we've established a centralized distribution center where we're trying to address some of those critical needs and have that backup in the event we run short again. So, but yeah, this is great. Definitely thank you guys. More than welcome to come back, whenever that's possible. I'll leave that to Sherry to coordinate. But again, we appreciate you guys' support and thank you for sharing.
You're
And Tim,
welcome. I'm an ARM member, so I definitely, I stay on top of a lot of the ARM. I need a home chapter, so maybe I would like to join y'all.
Come on aboard. We will definitely welcome you. We have opened our borders.
Perfect.
Thank you. Let's see, next slide.
one more.
Yeah, one more slide. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I'm looking at my deck. Sorry. Keep going to the end there. I think we're at the save the date. So all that joined today's call, just be on the lookout for a brief survey, and this survey is just to help us. We're looking for your feedback to tell us what we did right, what do we do wrong, or where can we improve. So we like to get the feedback from our members, just to make sure we're providing relevant content that improves each of our organizations. So our next meeting coming up February the 17th, same time, same station.
And Tim, I wanted to say just a little bit about the next meeting.
Okay.
We've got the speaker lined up. Her name is Linda Swindling. She's an attorney and she's a professional speaker. She's going to be talking about negotiations, and that's in your personal life or in your work life, just strategies on how you can negotiate and get the results that you want.
Okay, that's great. What I'll do is I'll update this slide to sort of include sort of a snippet of what's to come to kind of create some early interest. So that's great. I'm looking forward to that presentation. Are there any other questions during this meeting? Did anyone feel compelled, or they feel to join a committee? Anybody? Don't be shy. All right. Well, I'll definitely every month I'll send out that open invitation, and we look forward to just continuing to serve the group. And I know this call was to last till 6 p.m., but hey, time is very, very valuable. So we're able to join this call and give more than enough time back to our days. Safe travels to everybody, and on behalf of the North Texas ARM Board, again, we want to say we thank you guys for taking time out of your day to connect. I look forward to we can get together in person, which I know will be extra special. We'll definitely let you guys know if that ever comes to be. So thank you guys. Anybody else have any last comments? Please do so. If not, we can adjourn.
Thank you.
Great presentation. Thanks,
Yes,
everybody.
thank you.
Thank you.